Siman Chafei Sif Yud. Now the Mechaber, the last thing he had said was that if you speak between putting on the Shel Yad and Shel Rosh, so if you normally only make one bracha on tefillin, see now you'll make two. If you make two brachas, you'll have to make both brachas on the Shel Rosh. So you'll be making three brachas. So the Mechaber says, now that's when it comes to talking. Now the question is, what's the definition of talking? Says the Mechaber, Imsach l'tzorich tefillin. Let's say you speak, but it's about the tefillin. Whatever you say, something that's necessary for the tefillin itself. Einer chayzim mevarich. Then you don't have to make another bracha. Now, what does it mean talking about the tefillin? I don't know if you ask someone, you shouldn't be doing this. You say, is it straight or something like that? That's at least about the tefillin. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Afilu imsach ben birchas laniach birchas tefillin shel yad gam kein tina hachi. Aval chachila says the Berurah asur hasiach ben birchas laniach ad achar hanach shel rosh afilu b'dvarim shein tzarich tefillin. Obviously, even though it doesn't require another bracha, it's only b'diavad. You should not speak at all, even with tzarich tefillin. And he says b'chol hamoyed or with Rabbeinu Tam, then you could be makel because there's no bracha anyway if it's for tzarich tefillin. Now that's tzarich tefillin. What about if you hear dvarim shebekdusha? You hear a bracha, amen, yehesh merabah, baruch hu, kaddish, kedusha. Those are not tzarich tefillin. It's not mundane speech, but it's not tzarich tefillin. So says the Mechaber, im shama kaddish kedusha, bein tefillah shel yad tefillah shel rosh, lo yafsik. You're not allowed to respond. Elo shoysik v'shemei Mechaber. Just listen and have in mind that you're thinking about whatever they're saying. But you don't talk, even to answer kaddish, kedusha, and baruch hu. Now says the Mishnah Berurah, afilanis amin. Fine, I'm sorry. In Lamed Vav, v'im pasak v'ana amin yehesh rabbi kedusha. If you answer these things, you have to make another bracha. Now, by the way, as I mentioned last time, I saw on the bottom of this Mishnah Berurah, they have the psukim of Chabad. The Balatani in his siddur, not in Shulchan Aruch Harav, in his siddur, he had psukim in his siddur that Chabad follows. In his siddur, he says that you're supposed to answer and make a second bracha. That's they bring that in the siddur. But it's a very interesting psak from the Bir Halacha. The Bir Halacha, I never saw this, but the Bir Halacha says, he quotes, I think it's the Malbim. So the Malbim says, he has an interesting shita. He says, I personally make two brachas. You probably make one, probably two and two, if I had to guess, right? Right? So you make two brachas. The Mishnah Berurah says that if you speak, let's say you answer Yehesh Me'Rabba. So I said Lahaniach, I said Yehesh Me'Rabba. It has the same status as talking, so I'd have to make an additional two. The Artis Chaim Shita is, don't make an additional two. Just make two brachas as you would regular. Why? Because you can mitzvah of two shitas. First of all, it could be answering Yehesh Me'Rabba is not considered hefsek, because it's about God. Secondly, it could be that you're always only supposed to be making one bracha. In which case, if you spoke, you're just going to make two. So don't make an additional one. So it's interesting. So that's Artis Chaim. So it might be something to be samichan. I think the Piskei Teshuvah says that many people rely on this Artis Chaim. Okay. Now the Mishnah Berurah does bring down that if on Chol HaMoed, if you're wearing tefillin Chol HaMoed, or if you're wearing Rabbeinu Tam, so you're not making a bracha anyway, you are allowed to answer Yehesh Me'Rabba and Amens, because you're allowed to answer Yehesh Me'Rabba and Amens, and that's not a problem. He says Yesh L'Hag L'Havsak and Yesh Amen Yesh Rabba Kedusha Baruch Hu V'Amen, but it's interesting. You should move the Shel Yad around when you're done, so that at least it feels like there's a connection between the Shel Yad and the Shel Rosh. The Mechaber says in Yud Aleph, the Mechaber says, Achar shekasha Shel Yad al Azroya, Yaniach Shel Rosh, Koidim sheyichroch ha'rutzua saviv hazroya. The Shita Mechaber is that you put the Shel Yad on, you don't wrap everything, you just put the Shel Yad on, and then you put the Shel Rosh on, and then you finish the wrapping. Now, as we'll see in a moment, before we get back to the Mechaber, now it says in Mishnah Berurah, Hatam, what's the reason? Kivan sheberchas lahaniach chayzeres gamal shoroish, kol shkein l'mechaber, tzvi'in v'arach l'achas, al korchich yimad ha'hefsek, chol ma sheyuchol, archich l'sav v'zroya, einam ikredin. Al korchich toiv l'achar lo yisad she'aniach shoroish. The reason being is because the brach of shoroish goes on, the shel yad goes on the shoroish as well, so we don't want to extend the time. You don't need to wrap it around the arms. The main point is just for it to be secure. So if you could secure it, then put the Shel Rosh on. Now, I don't think anybody would have seen this. The most I saw is, I think, Ramosha. The videos of Ramosha that he would just do one or two times like that. He wouldn't do all seven. He would do one or two times. Brisker Rav was the opposite. Chaim Brisker would do even the finger. But I think Ramosha, there's a video you can watch Ramosha put on tefillin. It's interesting. He's put all one or two times, and that's it. and then he would put the Shal Rosh on. What most people do, overwhelming majority of Klal Yisrael, is you put the Shal Yad, wrap it 7 times, don't put it on the finger, and then put it. Where does that come from? The Mishnah Berurah says, Ubesefer Kavanas Hari, the Arizal said, Sheyanoig lichach hashiva krichas saviv zrei tchila. He would put the 7 on the arm, not the 3. Because he felt, the Arizal felt that the 7 around the time is part of the mitzvah of putting on the tefillin, and therefore it's not extending. That's part of the mitzvah. Levika ein ze hefsek. V'chein ha-minig. That's the minig of Klal Yisrael. V'hamshu is Mishkanes Yaakov, lichor koydem al zrei lechizik, v'lavach lo miskayim. Now again, even if you don't hold, he says an interesting psak though. Im shama kadosh kedusha, let's say you put on the tefillin, you're a little bit late, and you see Baruch Hu's coming up. And if you do the 7 times, you're going to be in the middle. You won't be able to answer. So here's what you do. Then just do the 2 times, get the Shal Rosh on, answer Baruch Hu, and then do all 7. Now says the Mechaber, back to the Mechaber. Yesh misha omer, she'aser lahaitzi tefillah Shal Rosh, me'atik, ad shetei tefillah Shal Yad munechas. So you're putting on the Shal Yad. While you're doing the Shal Yad, you want to take the Tefillin Shal Rosh out. No. You are not supposed to take the Tefillin Shal Rosh out of the case until the Shal Yad is officially secure. Now, where does this come from? If you look at the Tzadi, the Berurah says it from, it's Chuvas Hari Jekatilia. The Hari Jekatilia, this is more your son's domain. It's a shtickle shikabala. He says Jekatilia is a shtickle mekubal sefer. This is Alpi Kabbalah. Alpi Kabbalah, you do not take the Shal Rosh out of the case until the Shal Yad is secure. It's Alpi Kabbalah. The Mishnah Berurah says, Hainu afilim yirtza, yesh lazar ki yesh b'zeh tam Alpi Kabbalah. Then says the Ramah, v'afim shneim lefanav, chutz l'tik, and let's say they're already out of the case, whatever it is, they're both on the table. Lo yitakin l'ptoyach hatfil shal rosh. Don't, pull the ritzuas off, don't pop them off until the Shal Yad is officially done. Then you start the Shal Rosh. Okay, one last shayla, and then we'll finish for today. How do you put on the Shal Yad and the Shal Rosh? Yesh mishakasav, Ashkenazim, we stand for both. Right? But Sfaradim sit for the Shal Yad and you sit for the bracha also, and the krichas. You do all that. Okay. So Yesh mishakasav laniach Shal Yad miyoshev, the Shal Rosh mu'umid. Some say you should sit for the Shal Yad and stand with Shal Rosh. Where is that from? That's b'shem hazoyer. That's off from the Zoyer. Medinas elu lo yinagu kein l'shtei mu'umid. But says the Ramah, we stand for both. Now it says the very interesting Mishnah Berurah, just to finish it up. The Mishnah Berurah says, again, he brings down, because the Zohar says to sit for the Shal Yad, the Ramah says to stand. So interesting, halfway through the Mishnah Berurah, he says like this, he says, Aval El Yerab Hashem Marshal Kosav Milanu Godel Merash Mekinun Acha Shalom and Kabbalah he Mispal Ketinik Ben Yoimai Demishal Yachal Hasik Seidel Nocha and Yovel Katzistan Netias Yabrach Avanocha Bamida. He says the Rash Mekinun, who is a big Mekubal, says following the Zohar, if you don't really understand what is going on, it's not a good idea. Stand. But then he says interesting. And the Gra says you should know even the Zohar you don't really have to sit. It's fine. This is interesting shayla. What happens in this situation? You have the Zohar saying to sit, and al pi halacha the standard process is to stand. So do you go Kabbalah or do you go Halacha? So the Mishnah Berurah says the rules. It's a good Mishnah Berurah to know. Kasav HaKnesses HaGedayla B'Klali HaPoiskim. The Knesset HaGedayla wrote a sefer of the rules of Psak. And this is his rule. Kol davar shebalei Kabbalah v'Zoyer cholkin in a Gemara. If there's a machlokes, Zoyer and Gemara, Halach Achar Gemara. Go by the Gemara. V'Poiskim. Miu. In Bali Kabbalah Machmirim. But let's say the Gemara says A, and the Zoyer is Machmer. So it's not a machlokes. The Zoyer is being Machmer. Yesh L'Hachmer. Then you should be machmer, unless the Gemara specifically says not to. He says, but you can't force someone to follow the Zohar. And let's say you have a situation where the Gemara doesn't address it, but it's a machlokes. The Zohar says one thing, the Kabbalah says one thing, and the Halacha says another, but it's not from the Gemara, then Divrei Kabbalah Yachri, you go by the Kabbalah. So if it's not from the Gemara, if it's just a Shaila, Kabbalah or Halacha, you go Kabbalah, but it's just a little end. This will be a little shocking. Ramosha Feinstein has a shita that he felt that the Arizal is not Kabbalah. Kabbalah is Zohar. He felt that Arizal is a Poisek. Most the Chidah, everyone understands that the Arizal, his psak, his rulings, mamish like Eliyahu Novi, Ramosha said no. When this rule that you go by Kabbalah over Halacha, if it's not Muskar and Gemara, that's Zohar. He says the Arizal was a Poisek. And therefore, you could. It's interesting to see the Ramosha. I don't think that the most. Again, this is a big shiloh with the Svardim, Rabbi Yaakov Hillel, Rabbi Yosef, Ben Ish Chai, all these things. But this is a very Mishnah Berurah.